Hey, sir.
Hello.
How you doing?
I could do better.
I
went up to the, so what brings me here is I went to the FBI building. I talked to them. There is police corruption involving Holly Springs Police Department, the mayor, multiple officers. There was actually a cover-up yesterday that I actually caught on camera, on video.
Okay.
My constitutional rights were violated. First of all, I'm a constitutional rights activist. I'm a Marine Corps veteran. I travel around the city and county buildings, and I video the inside under the publicly accessible areas, the lobbies. And yesterday had a little tie-in that actually the mayor, it was big overreaction from the mayor. Contacted the chief of police, the police department. There's half the department shut up, but they. By the way, do you have some water? I've been sitting here for a while. I'm kind of parched.
Yeah, we don't actually have accessible bottled water.
I didn't know if you had a fountain in here or anything.
No.
No, we don't actually.
Well,
Sorry.
that should be fine. So what happened was, and it would be easier to show you on video. I've got my phones are out there in the car. Obviously, I couldn't bring them in here.
Okay.
But I actually saw last night as I was mixing everything down. I didn't catch it at the time, but the chief deputy or whatever, I guess the number 2 in command over there, came out. Refused to look at the video evidence to know that I was, as I claimed from the beginning, my actions were lawful, constitutionally protected. I had case law with me, and he refused to look at any of that. Just wanted to take the mayor to her word. She was requiring a mask, or else I couldn't be in City Hall. Told her I had health issues and I couldn't breathe with a mask on. She told me I had to leave City Hall. For one, I think that's definitely directly challengeable right there, because the right to petition the government for redress of any grievance.
Let me ask you this: have you talked to the district attorney in that district first?
I have not. I actually did a notice of claim, and I got a notice of claim to go file with the city clerk. But what had happened was the deputy chief, or the chief deputy, came out the door. He said, "Hey, let me talk to you down there." Walked down the stairs, and basically he said that I had scared him. I was nothing but polite, and respectful inside. And I told him he was right here in my space, maybe a foot away from me, and he was escalating. I asked him to de-escalate and to provide space to get about 6 feet from me, at least a few feet. And he said something else, and I told him, I said, if you're ordering me to leave under fear of arrest, or under threat of arrest, I will leave. Obviously, that gives me standing to challenge anything that's called into question like that. That infuriated him right there. I guess he said that something about federal, and he ended up charging back at me, coming at me, and I mean, it was like he was reaching for his belt. Definitely, it was threatening, intimidating. The officer that was outside, there's an officer that was watching everything that had a body camera on. Coincidentally, the chief did not have a body camera on. The officer that was off to the side that had his body camera on, watching every moment. As soon as it escalated again and the chief started coming after me, he does an intentional 180-degree turn. There's nothing back there. He was actually conversing with somebody right there off the steps. Did an intentional turnaround so that the body camera couldn't capture everything, so that he wouldn't be an eyewitness. I know it was because he didn't want to be an eyewitness to anything. It was plausible deniability. The government's been doing it for the longest time.
So, one of my recommendations is strictly purely a recommendation. Since it's a local police department you're having to do that with, you probably want to start the DA's office first in that jurisdiction.
The reason why I came to the level I did, I called the chief of police this morning because I wanted to file formal complaints on the officers, particularly those 2, the one that turned his back and the one that came at me. When I called over there, I said I want to speak to the chief. Put me on hold. This woman picked up and sounded kind of like the same one. Said I need to speak to the chief. Said this is the chief. And so she falsely represented herself as the chief of police. I called back and then hung up on me when I said I had formal complaints to file on officers. Called back, actually reached the true police chief and told him that somebody was misrepresenting him, and got into the details of everything. He basically cut me off when it got to the mask mandate, the mask requirement inside of the building. I was trying to get into, what happened with the officers and how I had everything on video, and basically he wasn't having any part of it. I said, if we can't handle it at this level with internal affairs or with, the department head, then, obviously it's going to be a departmental issue, because you're not wanting to take care of it, and I'm going to have to go to the FBI about this. And he said, and not to mention put the video public, and that's what I did. I called the FBI, tried to go up there on an appointment. Apparently everybody is out at 2:45 in the afternoon. I waited for an hour and a half in the parking lot because they said nobody was here. The one thing I tried to avoid before I drove 20 miles uptown was people not being there. And, what a great use of our taxpayer dollars right there. That nobody's in the FBI branch to talk to me when they told me to come up there and talk to somebody about it. So they wasted my time right there. That's why I came over here, because I know y'all are the prosecuting arm, and maybe I could talk to somebody about that. Another thing that I wanted to talk to y'all about, I'm actually banished from Oxford and Lafayette County.
Yeah, we're aware of that.
You're aware of that. I have tried, I actually wanted to get Bob to look into everything. This was a complete invasion into my federally protected constitutional rights, in particular my first, by the state of Mississippi. When I went into City Hall, obviously I do these audits, at different city halls across the state, and I've had a proven history of it from before the Oxford City Hall incident and then after. I went in there, I wasn't asking for Robin Tannehill, never saw Robin Tannehill, nothing. Okay, I had to do a public record request while I was in there, and I wanted to film the inside of City Hall because they have lots of different things on there, history in City Hall. Never once saw her, so it's, basically their word against mine. I had the whole thing videotaped. They wanted to say that a perceived violation of the restraining order, which that should have been the most it ever went to, was a violation of the restraining order. That's it. I never stalked her. I never had any contact with her. Nothing. I just simply was engaged in a constitutionally protected activity inside of City Hall, was going to request records before I left. Obviously, I was ordered out by the police and told not to go back in there because it was a violation of the restraining order. Cool. I left it alone at that. I thought the issue was a dead issue, and I was going to take it up with court to challenge the restraining order. 3 days later, after that, Jeff McCutcheon, Chief of Police, refers the matter out to MBI. MBI, last year, I openly accused of being complicit in derelicting their duty because I was trying to report a corruption scandal involving the Oxford mayor before her re-election here in Oxford. I was ultimately barred from speaking at City Hall on the day of her election back in 2017. And that's where everything came from. I was on the agenda to speak out. They took the restraining order out to block me from speaking. I don't think a citizen could be barred from a public center such as City Hall. And granted, if I tried to make contact with her or if I saw her, that's one thing. But the fact that I went in there for official purposes, and the fact that 3 days after I was given a warning not to go back in, I never went back in. 3 days later, the Chief of Police refers it out to MBI. Chief of Police being his boss being the mayor. So I guarantee the directive came down from her. Otherwise, why would he just 3 days later decide to kick it over to the MBI when I was already warned not to come back in? MBI, of course, they have bias, and they showed a ton of bias because they, I had tweeted out and I put a video out with all the evidence of me calling MBI 5 different times trying to report crimes and them never giving me a call back. That should have never been allowed to happen. And honestly, I don't think, if this is declared a violation of my First Amendment right for just simply walking into City Hall, then the state never should have been able to charge me with aggravated stalking. The only reason I pled out is I had a crooked public defender. I was in jail for 3 months' time, and I have kids. He told me that if I didn't plea out, literally the day before the plea, he told me that they were going to toss out the charges. They were dismissing everything because they had nothing. I go to a competency hearing, he pulls me to the back and says, if I don't plea out, they're going to take it to trial. They have all the influence, the mayor, the mayor's husband being a high-profile attorney, and they'll probably get a conviction and send me to Parchment for 5 years. That's bullshit. I never stalked anybody. Never once.
I got you. I think you want on that first issue you're talking about. I think you need to go to start with the district attorney's office in that judicial court first before you come here, and that way you know if they
Proper
say,
chain of command or whatever.
Well,
Okay.
not necessarily chain of command. That's where it happened at, and we don't like to overstep the states on jurisdictional.
But you
lines.
guys need to intervene when the state is invading, federally protected constitutional rights like this. I mean, literally, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to examine the facts that I laid out. I've made sure to document everything to the fullest. And
But
the
you
fact
gotta
that this
get in
office
front of
has
us.
stood down for 5 years when I've tried to report things, the FBI hadn't wanted to look into anything. They've allowed it to happen.
Well, you need to exhaust those first before, because I can assure you this office probably not going to step on anybody's toes before you allow them the opportunity.
That's for the Holly Springs issue, right?
Right.
Okay. So what about the issue here in Oxford?
You're going to talk to the sheriff because it's already a banishment out there, so that's a sheriff deal there.
But if a federal civil rights investigation,
It's not a federal deal.
it is a federal. That's where you and I differ, okay? Because I took a lifelong oath to protect and defend our Constitution, and you can't
Me and
say
you both
that.
are veterans too.
But you can't say
And
me walking into City Hall on official business to request public record. How is
I think
basically
they're looking at-
keeping somebody from going into City Hall off of a 5-year-old restraining order that was already questioned, that already should have been questioned? How can y'all allow the First Amendment protects the right to petition the government for redress of grievances?
I can't
It
speak
allows
to that. However,
freedom of the press,
What I'm trying
freedom of
to get you to
speech.
see as of today is not a federal matter. That's between you and the sheriff.
It's not though. But the federal side is going to be the only avenue I have to vindicate this, to attack it on the
Okay, so
constitutionality,
then-
on its constitutionality, on its face.
Right. But there's a process for that. The county banished you, not the federal government.
No, but if the federal government declared it unconstitutional to
But
begin
it's
with.
that's what I'm saying. It's a process for that. You hadn't filed in any court, any process. It's nothing.
Well,
just
because
said it.
I haven't hit 30 days past the.
Right. So that's what we would be telling you now. My coworkers see anything different, I'm leaving out. Please chime in. But your issue is with Sheriff East and the County Board of Supervisors.
First of all, Sheriff East is the source of a lot of this corruption. I don't know if y'all saw any of the.
I can't get into that.
I'm
so
sure
we
you
we
can't,
get into
but
that. All we can tell you is
it's not fair for me to go to him whenever he is literally ushered in and authored a lot of this stuff that's happening.
well, we can't accuse anybody of anything. That's allegations that we don't get into.
But I get accused of the most random
We're
shit.
not.
and-
We're not.
No, I know that.
We're not.
But it's who do you go to when the people that are supposed to intervene and prevent stuff aren't doing their job in preventing it?
You
I
have
mean,
a
I can't go to the
process that
state.
You need to get to. So you need to hire an
This is
attorney.
public corruption.
Right,
It
but
is
you
a
need to hire-
massive public corruption.
Right. You need to hire a private attorney to advise you the best route that you have.
I'm tired of hearing that.
You
That's
coming
bullshit.
in here-
I don't have the money to hire a private attorney.
Yeah, but sir, this is a federal bill, and these are federal prosecutors that are handling federal cases that have been through the process, and
Right.
now they're assigned to someone.
But y'all have the ability to refer something to the Civil Rights Division at Maine Justice. And I was one. I mean, there have been so many documented things
you
that
done
have
that
happened over
online?
5 years.
There is on the DOJ's website. There is a place where you can file a complaint if you have one.
It's going to be the size of the Bible if I have to write everything out.
That's
Because
fine.
everything that's happened.
That's fine, but you need to take that route first. You walking in here is not going to solve anything. It's not. You talking to three airmen, a soldier, and a soldier. We understand, but you got to understand. Remember you talk about chain of command? There's a process.
I wanted to talk to somebody because I wanted to redress our government about my extreme frustration
I got you.
on, the FBI, first of all, being out at 2:45 in the afternoon. Nobody's in that office. That's a great use of taxpayer dollars right there.
Well, that is a small regional office, and I can say this right here. They're handling a lot of stuff for their small office, so it may not necessarily be in the office as opposed to working
Yeah.
or doing something out in the field. So you got to take that under consideration also.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Trust me, as a fellow veteran, I concur with you. How you feel.
And you don't realize how worn down I am. I've literally had to fight my own battles. I've had no attorney, nobody, because of all the influence.
Have you asked?
Yes.
You've asked to turn this around here.
Nobody. Well, it's because of the people that have been involved in this. I mean,
so one thing you might want to go back and do is you talk about this influence, but if you kind of do a self-assessment, the way you might be handling things might not come off in the best way.
It may not, but you know what? 5 years' time of literally beating a dead horse to death and begging and pleading for help will do that to anybody. I don't care who you are. I mean, literally, I have lost. I had a phenomenal career path. Lost that. We lost 4 houses. I got 4 kids. You know, they're directly suffering from it, and the shit's it's bullshit.
Yeah, I understand. Like I said,
that shit'll make anybody.
Yeah. And if you were willing to chime in, I don't think there's nothing else we can do. And if it was, trust me, he would correct me. He would tell if I'm telling you what can be done, but your issue with that particular banishment is with the sheriff. He is the enforcer of the county.
He is. Yeah. You're right. He's the enforcer. So my issue with the banishment, I can't go to the sheriff about the unreasonable banishment that my deadline for leaving my house in the county being November 15th.
So if you're going to dispute that, you need to get in front of a county judge. You need to request a hearing or something with a county judge.
I want to withdraw my guilty plea, and I want to take this. I want to honestly take this to trial. I know that my attorney now. I know he will. He has literally ignored me. He's assigned to represent me in appeals from justice court to circuit court. Mm-hmm. I found out the circuit court judge intentionally tried to block me from appealing the justice court. Like literally, the circuit clerk called the circuit judge. I had an order in my hand signed by a judge that granted me the ability to appeal without the prepayment of fees, indigent. And literally, he insisted on charging the fee on the last day of me being able to get a notice of appeal into circuit court. Luckily, I filed it in justice court, but the fact that the prosecutor has been going back to I didn't file my notice of appeal properly and in the right court and on time. But I have a recording of going into circuit court on the 27th of December and trying to file it and getting turned away because they called the circuit court judge and he said, no, we're not going to honor that, charge the fee, and I didn't have the money.
Well, let me ask you one last question. We're going to have to, because we all got work to do. We got to get back.
Y'all just need to look into this shit, man. Like it's
we will provide you the right direction to go to.
But y'all don't. I mean, do y'all not care for the sake of society and what's going on?
Well, that's what leads me to this.
But the precedence that sets for them to over 5 years' time be able to get away with the same things, get stronger because it's worked. And do y'all not worry about the threat that makes to society as a whole when people like that are allowed to continuously get away with it and abuse their power and act in corrupt and immoral ways? What that can mean to the rest of society when they can, if they can turn the gun around on somebody that pledged a lifelong oath to their country to protect and defend its Constitution. What do you think they can do to anybody else?
Well, let me ask the $1 million question. What of what you're trying to do when you go to these places, filming in these particular videos, what is your overall goal?
To protect, to stand on my rights and to protect the First Amendment. My rights have been trampled over. That's why I call it the Fayette County audit, because it all stemmed in Lafayette County.
So you're basically forcing someone to challenge your constitutional rights?
Absolutely not. No, because there are a lot of places there are a lot of places that don't go power tripping, that respect the right. I'm not going in there to record people, but why put things in a lobby? Why dress it up? Why put pictures on the walls? Why put up agendas and all that, and then turn around and tell your citizens they can't record in a publicly accessible lobby? That's the thing.
So that's what
if you don't
point in recording?
If you don't exercise your rights, you lose them. I found that out firsthand over the last 5 years. I'm exercising my right. I'm engaged in a constitutionally protected activity of filming in public as a journalist.
So you're a journalist?
I am. And in America, we have freedom of press. So anybody that gathers news, any type of news, and disseminates it to the public is considered press under the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court's already ruled that anybody in America can fall under the classification of press if you're gathering news content and then disseminating it out.
Okay.
And that's what I do.
Fair enough. Now I understand your intent.
Yeah.
Well, sir, we have no business affairs here in this building for you today because there's nothing that we as a department can.
I think there's stuff that y'all can do. I think that you're choosing not to.
It's not so much as choosing not to. So I asked you $1 million question. Did you file the proper necessary paperwork in the process that it should to get to somebody in there?
I just think it's, well, in answer to your question, when I have a attorney that has not done a single thing, I've literally had to learn all the law myself to file in different courts, and it's so overwhelming with everything else going on to expect me to know how to do everything just like an attorney when I don't have an attorney. And for this jackass to be in the position of being my attorney and basically cock-blocking me right there, but because I can't talk to, about the certain issues, Bob Norman said that he would have to, my attorney would have to call him to see if, about
that's
bringing
what I'm talking about, the process.
But, when I tell my attorney that, and when he doesn't do it, and when he ignores every text message and doesn't respond back, but yet he's in that, that position of being my attorney, blocking that seat right there, whereas if I was my own attorney, I could handle things myself like that. So I actually sent him a text message today telling him he was fired. He didn't do his job when he was, for the felony stuff, and he hasn't done his job for the appeal from Justice Court to Circuit Court. So I have no business having him as my attorney anymore, and he's fired. And he said that in order to fire him, the court has to fire him. But so he's wanting to stay steadfast on as my attorney when he's not doing anything.
Right.
That's ridiculous. That's not the way the system is supposed to work.
I got you. All I'm trying to really convey to you is that we can't fight your battles for you in this form. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying you're not afforded rights. This is the primary person that handles security issues on the secondary. If she doesn't come to me, we have a procedure. I'm just choosing to speak to you because of one thing. I feel you when you were saying you're being very passionate about what you're saying. But at the same time, you're not getting the point of what we're trying to say. Your fight is not with DOJ.
But what if it's not, if I'm not talking about civil, and I'm talking about actual criminal acts that need to be investigated by the proper federal authorities?
And there's a procedure for that. Most of the time, how things get to the FBI generally comes from the U.S. Attorney's Office by way of, hey, I want you to go investigate this. But it's a criminal complaint. That's what I'm trying to get you to get.
Well, I'm actually working on a public corruption complaint right now.
So
I'm going to file it with the senator's office and have it filed at the governor's office so that it's on file. It's got like 4 or 5 judges that are named on it. It's got it's got a lengthy list, but I've got
That's what you need to start
finish.
with. That's what you need to start with before you come. So you come in here empty-handed, you leaving Chris and Wendy and me at a disadvantage. We have nothing to turn around and go to anybody with.
I didn't know if y'all could basically assist in anything.
We got procedures we have to follow, sir, and that's what you're running into is those procedures. We got to follow the procedures for it to be something that's legal and binding that can be addressed.
Understand?
That fair enough?
Yeah, I got to get to Holly Springs because I got to go to a print shop, print out this.
I would start on the Holly Springs district. Go see the district attorney.
Well, I was going to go ahead and serve that notice of claim on the city clerk so I can get that on file, and then once they deny it, 90 days after, I can file my 1983 case and in 1986. Against the city and police department. So. Good deal.
Thanks, sir. All right.
Hey, Matt Reardon, by the way.
Yes, sir. Nice to meet you.
You are
Stephen Jackson.
Stephen Jackson.
I'm Wendy.
Wendy, nice
Hey,
to meet you.
Make sure when you come to Lafayette County, make sure you call the sheriff's
I did.
office first, so you don't get yourself in trouble. Okay?
I did.
All right.
I did. I mean, they already know my every move. I called them up front.
I just don't want you to get in trouble coming over here. Just
Right,
make sure you
but
do
see,
that.
that's where it treads into murky waters.
Right.
Is whenever it comes to me having official business such as court stuff or legal matters, and then them trying to impede or anybody else impeding
Right.
by bringing up the fact of the banishment.
Right.
That's where it starts treading into that is it's a violation of my 8th Amendment rights. It's a violation of my First Amendment right. It's a violation of
Well, you
Yep.
see, we don't have an issue with you. The guys that's over there in blue, they ain't got no issue with it. We here to help. But in the case that you have, procedurally, we can't do anything until you do the first thing.
Got it.
Fair enough?
Got it.
All right.
Fair enough.
Thank you,
sir.
Matt.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Take it here.
Let me get you the sign out real quick. It is 1550.
Okay.
All right, have a good day.
Thank you.